you've got to think about this in terms of being very careful not to protect. I've heard so many people talk about their towns and trying to protect their local newspapers. Truth. In 2000, 60% of all profits at all newspapers was caused by classified advertising. It was 40% of revenue. That was destined to disappear with the emergence of Craigslist and the internet. That meant no newspaper can survive on the old model. Period. You cannot print a newspaper and be successful when you lose 60% of your profits by losing your classified advertising business. That's why we see the emergence of the Washington Post, the New York Times, and these few big city ones that are left. Not even Tribune could make it. And they had the Tribune and the Los Angeles Times. They're now through 3 rounds of bankruptcy. It's called trunk. It's a disaster, right? And you would say, I can't stand the idea of losing my city newspaper. Maybe not. What's more important is, do you have Market Watch in town, right? Do you have the place people get news online? And you're going to have to place some bets. So Facebook was a pretty successful company, right? And they had all these kids using the platform. But then they realized that they had to have pictures. They went out and bought Instagram. They made a $1 billion bet on a company with 15 employees and no revenues. Instagram's now the #2 most popular site on the internet after Facebook. A few more years go by and they said, you know what, we have to keep people here. We're going to lose them to texting. We're going to eventually lose them to the phone calls. We need something called over-the-top technology, which allows us to keep people on our platform for many, many more uses. And at that point, they put up $19 billion to buy WhatsApp. Okay? WhatsApp is now in the top 3 of the most used parts of the internet, right? Again, it had no revenues the day that they bought it. What? They look to the future, they pick their bets. They make their bets. It's paid off. Now, excuse me, I realize these are business analogies and you aren't in that kind of a business. But you're making a big bet on Foxconn. You know that. What's the next one? What's the third one? What's the fourth one? Where's the bet? If Foxconn is your Instagram, what's your WhatsApp? Because I'm telling you, they had 2 years to figure that out before they made their second bet. I challenge you. You're coming up on 2 years from the announcement of the Foxconn deal. Have you figured out your next one yet? Are you ready to make an even bigger bet this time? Because the stakes are higher. We saw that with the Amazon announcement, right? Look how much Amazon raised the stakes when they came out with selecting their second headquarters. The stakes are getting higher. You've got to decide where you want to bet. And sometimes you may have to go all in. You may have to put all of your resources in one deal to win that one deal. Because the world of strategy these days isn't about diversification. It isn't about trying to be good at a lot of things. It's about winning at something that's growing. Remember that very first rope trick. You are either growing or dying. You have to be planning for continuous growth. So, Amazon, the deal. I have heard so many people talk about Amazon and all of the big dollar offerings they're going to give Amazon. I'll give you my take on this. Amazon became Amazon because it's the most disruptive company I've ever seen. We used to think retail was pretty simple. Location, 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 and then inventory. Location doesn't matter on the internet, and you don't even have to have inventory because you can just put up a storefront and have somebody else ship it and take 5%. They destroyed the business model for traditional retail, right? They destroyed the business model for traditional publishers with Kindle books. Right? This is a company that's out there changing the game in everything they do. Now, if all somebody offers them is money, they're going to say, that's nice. But what do they really care about? Are we in the place where we're going to change the game? If we go to that town as our next market, how will that help us to change the game? Now, I don't know who's going to win. But I can tell you some of the outliers look like they might be good probabilities. Miami opens the door to Latin America the way no other city does. It's one of the few continents that they don't have a great presence. If I'm sitting there and I've got a choice picking between markets that I'm already in and entrenched, and maybe getting some money to go to a market that gets me into a market I'm not, where do you think you're going to pick, right? That's the way you have to start thinking. How do you help the company be disruptive? If they come to Madison, if they come to Milwaukee, if they want to go to any town in Wisconsin, how are you helping them disrupt the markets and be more successful? Because if you're not helping them do that, you're protecting and defending an existing business. And that is a losing proposition. So investing in new ideas is really what it's all about. This is my example. If this guy came calling on your door, I'm not sure what you'd say, but he started out 30-some years ago selling records by mail order. So I love doing that because if I have a group of people under 25, they don't know what a record is and they don't know what mail order is, right? And if I tell them you had to write a check and mail it to somebody, they're like, what's a check, right? But that's how Virgin was started, mail order record distribution. He then opened 2 retail stores. They were kind of unique. They were called mega stores. One of them was in downtown London and the other one was in downtown New York City, right? His third business was an international airline. Think about that. And what he said was there's a hole in the market. There's one guy, that's British Airways, and they have about 95% market share, and there's an opportunity to go against them. And he opened an airline with nothing down. He put a team of 6 people on studying what could they do, how could they open their airline. He flew out of Gatwick rather than Heathrow when he started. He leased these planes from Citibank. He didn't even use a reservation system, a computerized one, because IBM wanted too much money, they put it on paper. They did it all by paper and fax machines. But he opened an international airline. Now, that's what you have to think about. If he came calling on you and said, I want to open an international airline out of Madison or Milwaukee, would you laugh or would you listen? And I mean really listen to the idea. Consider whether you might want to put up some gates or do some things to give the guy a chance. Well, ever since that experience, he's learned how to fund these small businesses. And that's how he's built the Virgin Empire. He's worth a few $1 billion today, right? Sir Richard Branson. All of it done by investing in small new ideas. Yes, everybody wants to win the Foxconn deal. And thank God you won it. Everybody wants to win the Amazon deal, right? That's where they want to go. It gets all kinds of attention. But what really wins in an affordable way? Don't forget the little story I told you. On the side, very little attention, almost no money, they put an incubator in the Merchandise Mart. Which, by the way, was a failing building in downtown Chicago. It wasn't doing well because nobody needed the Merchandise Mart anymore. You didn't have retailers coming to town anymore. So they put a little incubator in there. And then they just kept talking tech until they get a little bit of this job, a little bit of that job. They get some Google guys. The next thing you know, Google's got 3 floors in the building, right? And those are the kinds of jobs you want. And I'm not holding up Chicago as a role model. I'm just holding up that example of what happens when you invest in new ideas. So on the one hand, yes, you're going to have to make your big bets, and you did that with Foxconn, and congratulations. In time, we'll see if it's how big of a return you get off of it, right? It may turn out to be the best deal that we've ever seen. Let's hope it does. I really do hope that for you. You've got to now be thinking about what's the next one, because you're not going to get to shoot at all of them. You're going to have to pick your targets, and you have to figure out which one you really want. If you're smart, you'll figure out that target before they come asking. Don't forget what I said. When Hoffman Estates and the state of Illinois decided to give that money to Sears, what would have happened if instead they'd called up Jeff Bezos and said, we have a pot of money, we got Sears asking for it, we'll give it to you if you'll come make some kind of an investment in our locality. They'd have caught him completely off guard. Lord knows what he might have done at that point, right? That's where you want to be. You want to be out in front of that curve making it happen. So back to Tesla and General Electric, okay? This is something called the Ansoff matrix, and my team uses this all the time, where we think about where it is you're making your bets. And the man invented this back in the 1950s, believe it or not. Still a powerful tool. Are you in your existing market and with your existing offering? Are you still telling people, these are my resources, the same they've been for the last 40 years? Or are you trying to tell people these are the new markets we want to get into? These are the new things we want to do. This is the places we want to grow. This is the vision we have of Wisconsin and our cities for 2025. Are you selling that vision of a future? And if you do, what does it look like? Is it clear? And is it something that people really want to be tied to? If you've got that, you've got the most important thing. Apple just built an enormously expensive new headquarters in Cupertino, California. You know how much the Economic Development Organization put up for that? You want that, right? You want that piece. You got to go get that piece. That means asking for that piece before they come asking you, right? Look at your own matrix, where you're investing, how you're investing, and say, how do I get out of that? How do I get out of that bottom square? And how do I make my bets in other places? Quite simply, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. There comes a time to jump out of that pool, right? And to find yourself a brand new future. I've enjoyed talking with you today. I hope you've been listening and enjoying the concept of strategy and disruptive innovation as it can apply to your business. I think it's a lot of fun. I love doing this kind of work. It's all I do is talk to people about strategy and how things are disrupted. It may seem scary at times, but you see the winners make the bets, and I think you know how to do that. Thank you very much. I know we want to go, I'll take a couple questions if anybody has anything, otherwise I'll let you get on with the meeting. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Appreciate it.